Welcome to TGD High School, or as it's more eerily known, S21Prison. Now, S21 actually stands for Security Office, or SO21. In 1979, after the last wave of the Vietnamese came back through into Cambodia to thwart the rising threat of the Khmer Rouge attacking across Vietnamese lines, they took the entire city. The Vietnamese realized after a couple of waves of attacks from the Khmer Rouge across Vietnamese lines that the Khmer Rouge were a little bit too brave for their abilities. And they also realized that they were going to need to be quashed. They knew what was going on inside Cambodia during the time of the Khmer Rouge tortures, but they didn't know the extent of it until they came here. What they discovered was a school that had been converted from a high school to basically a torture chamber, a torture prison. What the Khmer Rouge had done in converting this in their time in torturing prisoners here is they also happen to have kept very, very good photographic and written records of the prisoners that came in. They discovered that nearly 20,000 prisoners had come through the prison, but they only found 7 prisoners alive, some of which were still tied to beds and dying from starvation and bodily damage. Now, of those 7 survivors, a few of them wrote books about their experiences here, which you can actually find all over this area of Cambodia, from Siem Reap all the way down here to Phnom Penh. Some of them gave eyewitness accounts of the torture and things like that for the advice needed to make movies like The Killing Fields and other movies like that, documenting the Khmer Rouge occupation. Undoubtedly, all of them have some pretty long-lasting and horrific memories of this place. So this is an example of one of the torture beds that they used, and what they would do is they would bind the ankles on this bar here and either twist them or twist their bodies, keep them in incredibly torturous, uncomfortable positions for long periods of time. Insofar as that they would be strapped here, this table would be where the interrogator would sit. And they had a very stringent guideline, a set of rules that basically immediately strike in the heart of the individual here that they are not playing around here, and certainly they were not joking. Of the many thousands of people that were here, they planned on killing every single one of them. So they knew that their fate was sealed. Some of them probably sang like canaries. Some of them likely probably just tried as quickly as possible to die or bleed out or whatever. I really can't imagine the kind of torment that went on here. Now, this is the last room in a series of 8 to 10 rooms, and this is one of 3 separate floors where basically 24 hours a day, prisoners would be brought in from the holding chambers, tortured, probably killed, and tossed, basically, after they had given up the information or refused to do so. I'm pretty sure they were killed at that point. Now, one of the more gruesome aspects of the brutality that came out of the Khmer Rouge torture chambers here is that to save bullets, most prisoners would be bludgeoned to death, usually by the inverted portion of a pickaxe to the back of the head. Now here we are in the second courtyard of S21, and the second courtyard is where they actually kept housed and locked down the prisoners. The reason that this portion of the school was more efficient is because it had longer rooms inside, and what they did was they basically built short, very small containment areas, each containing at least 1 prisoner, and what they would do was bind them by the ankles together all the way through the bottom end of the chambers themselves. On the outside, obviously, there was barbed wire and razor wire and things like that attached to the front of the building. I mean, I can't imagine anybody would really have to worry about escaping, and you're just gonna, you get outside of the prison and you're still in Phnom Penh, the heart of, you know, the Khmer Rouge and what they were doing here. This is one of the actual cells that they kept prisoners in. On the floor here, there's just a chain. There's no door here, and it's very. This is it. This is all the room there was. There's no ceiling. Again, these walls are very rudimentary. When the Khmer Rouge made them, they made them quick. They just threw bricks together, mortared them, and that was it. There was no need for security type doors. There was only a need to separate the prisoners from talking to each other. And they would, again, basically tie their feet down in such a way that they weren't able to flip over to the left or right, or essentially so that they were able to sleep. Everything they did right here. They eat, they sleep, they defecate. There's an ammo box at the base here with a name on it, the last name of the prisoner who was here. The prisoner actually had this chamber, what is featured in some of the photographs. He was tortured really badly. He was an engineer, and the smarter of the outcroppings of people that the Khmer Rouge detained here were paid special attention. So paranoid was the regime that they thought the smarter you are, the more likely you are to be anti-communist and be informers for whoever, any number of their weekly enemies that they conjured up that particular torture session. Another interesting thing about the portals here, the chambers, is that when the school was converted to a museum, the Tulsa Long Museum, or as they call it, the Genocide Museum, they went ahead and fortified the walls so that they weren't able to be knocked down. Apparently they were in pretty bad shape. Now behind me are bars that students could use to do their exercises and pee and stuff like that. And over here was a climbing rope where students would, you know, race to the top or whatever. But the Khmer Rouge, when they converted it to Security Office 21 or SO 21, they would tie people from the hands in the back and then literally hang them by their hands in a form of long-term, cheap, easy torture. Now, in addition to having many of the bodies and the tortures taking place here, they also, to keep the bodies away from the prisoners and to get them away from the prison itself, they brought many of the bodies out to what they call the killing fields, which isn't too far from here. It's about 11 kilometers outside of town. And again, to save bullets, what they would do is use farm tools and things to poke holes in the back of the head and to just cut people open, cut the bodies open and things like that. And it's pretty astonishing what they found after the Vietnamese cleared out the city and cleared out the area. Forces of Australia, the U.S. government, a couple other governments were here to find out, to kind of get things started, to, you know, get put back together and piece their lives back together. And what they found was just astonishing. In just about 5 short years, the Khmer Rouge were basically able to take about 1/3 of the population and obliterate it, remove it from the history books. From Battambang and the area around Battambang known as like the Killing Cave area, all the way down to Phnom Penh, even as far in as Champasak. They had, the Khmer Rouge had headquarters, and all of the places where these headquarters were located, they would bring in detainees, torture them, kill them, and then bring them out to the killing fields for the mass grave burial sites like this.